Hello, beautiful. I want to share with you about three women who used to live in my head. They all meant well, and they were all me at different times in my life. But honestly, two of them needed to be lovingly retired. I call them the bottler, the reactor, and the responder. And by the end of this video, I'll tell you which one stayed and the simple 10-second practice that brought her forward. I wanted to share this with you today because for so many women who are still working on expressing themselves, especially because of any past challenges like I've experienced, it's important to understand the stages we may go through before we get to the place where we feel really comfortable to speak our truth. This is a journey, and there are real, recognizable phases along the way. Let's start with the first one, the bottler. She was the version of me who learned somewhere very early on that her feelings were inconvenient, that they were too much or too risky to let out. She became really good at bottling them up. I spent most years with the bottler. I held in what I really felt for years and years. I became agreeable on the outside, but inside I wasn't happy. It would show up in the smallest moments, like when my husband would ask me where I wanted to go for dinner, and my answer was always the same: I don't know. I'm happy with whatever. The truth underneath that was that somewhere along the way, I had come to feel unworthy and unseen. And it was simply easier to be agreeable than to risk wanting something of my own. But here's what I've learned about bottling: the feelings don't disappear when we push them down, they don't disappear. They just go somewhere else, into the body, affects our sleep, into the tight places in our shoulders or our stomach. Mine was starting to make me unwell, and that was the first sign that something had to change. I share her with so much love now because she was doing her very best with what she knew at that time. She just didn't know yet that there was another way to live. And then one day, the bottle cracked. Enter the reactor. Now, I want you to picture this: years and years of swallowing things down, of saying, I'm happy with whatever, of keeping the peace at all costs. And then suddenly the lid comes off. And let me tell you, it's not graceful. I was not having measured conversations during this phase of my life. I was reacting to everything. The moment a feeling came up, the words came out, full volume, no filter, no pause at all. I remember one of the first times the reactor really showed up. Oh boy, it wasn't pretty. My husband and I were unpacking in our new home years ago, and we got into this silly argument about what goes where. And that's when the reactor appeared. I rattled on about why my view was the best. I started getting emotional. And then when he asked me, why are you so upset? Try and calm down. Oh, that just set me off. Calm down. Wow. But here's what I want to say about the reactor, because I think it's important. The reactor wasn't a problem to be fixed. She was a bridge. She was the part of me that finally said, I will not be silent anymore. And that mattered enormously. That was a necessary step on the way to something better. She just wasn't the destination, because reacting and speaking your truth are not the same thing. Reacting is an emotion in the driver's seat. And when emotion is driving, I wasn't really listening to the other person. And I certainly wasn't listening to myself. Which brings me to the woman who stayed, the responder. And let me be clear about the responder. She isn't someone who is evolved, calm, perfect version of me. She isn't better than the bottler or the reactor. She just learned a new way. And that move is the pause. So, this is what I do now. When something happens, whether it's a comment, a message, or a moment that lands, doesn't feel right, I pause for a few seconds, sometimes 10 seconds, sometimes a little longer, depends on what it is. And in that pause, I ask myself one simple question: what is my goal here? What do I want from this conversation? That one question changes everything, because suddenly I'm not reacting from the feeling anymore. I'm responding from what matters to me. Let me give you a real example from just the other day. My poor husband, he keeps getting used. My husband and I got into a disagreement over something small, the kind of thing that used to escalate quickly. Before, I would have reacted by wanting to prove that I was right, because being right felt important in the moment. But today, I used the pause. I took a moment to understand what my actual goal was in that conversation. My goal wasn't to win, it was to feel close to him again. Something else I've come to understand about this practice is that in the moment, the pause gives me clarity. I can suddenly see what I want to say. Practicing it day after day is what brought me back to myself, to the woman underneath all the reacting and all the bottling. Doesn't mean I always get it right. And that's the gift. It's just better conversations, but it leads to a better relationship with others, but especially with myself. If you recognize any of these women in yourself, whether it's the bottler, the reactor, or the one quietly learning to pause, the responder, I want you to know they're all part of how we come home to ourselves. Here's what I'd like to invite you to try this week, just once. When something lands hard, before you respond, give yourself 10 seconds. And in those 10 seconds, ask yourself, what is my goal here? That's all. Just 10 seconds. And let me know in the comments which woman is the one that you know best now: the bottler, the reactor, or the responder. Share them in the comments, because I love to read your comments. I hope you have a peaceful day, and I'll see you next time. From my heart to yours. Bye for now.